Hello my friends and happy Wednesday from where? Ottawa. I am in Ottawa, I am in Canada. I arrived yesterday from the United States to Ottawa and I gotta say this is very homely to me. It's almost the same climate as Estonia, it's on the same latitudes as Estonia compared to the north. We have the same snow and the same air. Feel like home here. Hello to the nice people of Canada. The border guards were really thorough. They stopped every last one of us and checked all our bags very thoroughly. So Canadians, your border guards are doing a great job. I do have a very janky setup and you can see it all up on my Patreon. I will not stop making content for you and we'll go straight to Avdiivka where there are some troubling advances of the Russian army. I'll read all the reports to you in this video. We now know that the Russians are in Avdiivka from the south and from the north. From the south there was a tunnel that they discovered and they sent quite a few guys, or actually units, through that tunnel. They emerged other side of the Ukrainian defense lines. Now these units were mostly destroyed and the situation has been stabilized in the south of Avdiivka. Let's look at it on the map also so you get an idea. So my friends, I have to hold my laptop because I don't have a better setup, but that doesn't stop me. As you can see, the south of Avdiivka, there is a Russian salient into the urbanized area. Well, this is the tunnel, underground tunnel, where Russia was able to push in over 100 guys actually into urbanized area of Avdiivka. Now, Ukraine deployed their best reserves into the area to stabilize the situation. And yes, most of the Russian units were surrounded and destroyed. This southern part here is under control and it's very hard for Russians to advance. Now it's very different from the northern of Avdiivka, which is much more troubling for Ukrainians. I'll zoom into it a little bit so you guys know what I'm talking about. So you see, even on this map it's already visible. Russians here are occupying positions in the urbanized area in the housing complexes of Avdiivka. And this here, the water body, it was a sand quarry and now it's filled with water. These were Ukrainian defensive positions, 3 layers of them right next to the sand quarry. And when Russians breached them, Ukrainians had to pull back not to face surroundment. So the Russians were able to push themselves into the urbanized area. And the main difference here is it's Russians attacking Bakhmut, for example. If they attack over the fields, the losses are 7-1, 7 Russians, 1 Ukrainians. When they got into Bakhmut, into the urbanized area, the losses got 1-1 or 2-1. Because the defenders lose their edge as soon as the attackers reach the urbanized area, because then they can find cover and it's not that easy to destroy them. The very same thing is going on in northern Avdiivka right now. Russians have breached the urbanized area of Avdiivka, meaning the losses are not anymore 7-1 to the benefit of Ukrainians, but now they're equalizing. That means defending Avdiivka will get a lot more difficult from now on if Ukrainians are not able to push out the Russian bridgehead into the urbanized area. And as it seems like right now, they're not able to do it because Russia is funneling in a lot of troops into that urbanized area. Second thing is that road. That is the road of life, the lifeline of the entire defending Ukrainian garrison in Avdiivka. This one main road right here where my cursor is, Russians are less than a kilometer of it, or if you want to speak miles, then something half a mile to 3/4 of a mile from that road, meaning if they have direct visual on that road, they could influence the vehicles here already with small arms fire. All of the Ukrainian lifeline comes through that road. So a few hundred more meters and Ukrainians would lose the main supply highway to Avdiivka. Of course, there are also smaller roads over those fields, but they are extremely muddy. I mean, this main road is muddy, but the other roads are like non-trespassable at this time of the year. So the fate of Avdiivka is decided in the next week, 2 weeks. What is going to happen if Ukrainians will have to pull out slowly, actively fighting, actively defending, if they pull out fast, if Russians are actually able to cut this road and take Ukrainians in the city into a pincher movement, we will see. But the situation is extremely tense for Ukrainians in Avdiivka right now. Russians are taking insanely high losses, but they don't care about it. So the situation is worse for Ukrainians who care about their losses and have to pull out to save manpower. Time will tell for us. I'll keep you posted. Don't show this document at all, please. Also, when I'm not showing the map and talking, then please do find B-roll. As much B-roll as possible. People do click away. Now, my friends, as you can see on the map, we're at the urbanized area of Krynky over the Kherson River, and the Ukrainian bridgehead is very, very slowly expanding, as slowly as the Russians are expanding into Avdiivka. But the more important part here is not the land liberated, because there's vast amounts of land and this expansion is slow, but the fact that it is the only urbanized bridgehead over the Kherson River and Russians have not been able to push it back, and they don't have an option to ignore it, because it will get into something massive, that it will evolve into a huge problem for them. So they have sent a lot of their reserves against this Krynky bridgehead, and they have not been able to dislodge the Ukrainians, which are about 300 to 500 man unit inside Krynky right now, holding their positions. Now, Russians are desperate because it's a small Ukrainian contingent in the Krynky and they're not been able to push back them with close to 10,000 men. So yesterday we got reports of Russians using actually insanely expensive air-to-ground missiles against Ukrainian troops and foxholes and trenches in Krynky. This is one of the rare instances where Russia actually uses its missiles against frontline military targets, which I would think they're made for, but Russia doesn't really do it. They usually attack civilian targets. Well, this shows you how desperate they are, changing their attack patterns like that. In Krynky, it is known that Ukrainians have a complete FPV drone superiority and they're able to attack almost anything that moves on the Russian side. Russians only have infantry because most of the vehicles are destroyed in the first week when they arrive in the Krynky area with Ukrainian kamikaze drones. Now, this bridgehead is not able to expand until Russians have this vast amount of reserves present, but it's not the goal. The goal of it is to tie up about 10,000 Russian troops with 500 Ukrainian troops. That is a very noble goal, and it is almost like 300 Spartans. Now, the sad part of it, I might sound optimistic here, but the sad part is I read the Ukrainian soldiers' reports from Krynky. It's hell on earth, surrounded by three sides, over the river, no way back except with boats, and sometimes Russian kamikaze drones up above. It is hell on earth. Nobody wants to fight there, but the ones there are true heroes in my eyes. Ukrainians are holding the bridgehead and it's a huge headache for Russia for now. I'll keep you posted on the situation. Now, my friends, we'll watch a video about GUR Group 13. Now, they are a drone unit, but not aerial drone, they're marine drone unit. Yes, these sea babies, I love the name, these marine drones who destroy Russian Black Sea Fleet. And this specific unit is responsible for the sinking or turning into a submarine for the Russian ships of Ivanovets, Serhiy Gotov and the Admiral Makarov. And these three ships are already a huge loss for the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Let's watch the video. It is very interesting because these sea babies, they look incredibly good on water. Look at it. That's the beauty. Here it is. Small boat, no man, it's unmanned, and it can do so much damage. If I was a captain of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, this would be my nightmare right here. Group 13. I feel like I'm watching a Hollywood movie, honestly. This is dramatic and very cool. Look at this, it's so maneuverable. You might think, oh, if I would have a machine gun, I'd shoot it, destroy it in a minute. Well, Russians are trying. Every time you can see those bullet ripples in the water. They cannot hit these boats. Boom, and we see the operators actually for the first time because it's a very secretive project. And they don't show the operators, so this is some very beautiful footage. Whoa, look how we used 10 drones in this operation. Of these 10, 6 drones hit the Ivanovets. So 6 drones hit. I thought it was 3. I saw 3 in the video. Ivanovets sank. It was the last ship that they sunk. But it was 6. So 6 of those. One of those cost like 300, 400,000. So still it's up to $1 million USD to take down Ivanovets. But Ivanovets itself cost a few hundred million. So it's a good trade-off. Boom, you can see it right here, this footage. This was Ivanovets, now it's a submarine. I love this footage, it's clear, you can see, boom, explosion, and it becomes a submarine. We can see how a small group of people can seriously strike the enemy. The entire assembly, design, equipment, engineers, software, everything is Ukrainian made, and this is key point right here, because the FPV drones we talk about, Ukraine is incredibly successful with them, and most of them are funded by volunteer money, but the parts are all from China, mostly all, like 90%. This drone is genius, because when China says, okay, you're not going to get parts from us anymore, this Sea Baby, it would still exist. The Russian Black Sea Fleet would still sink. This is why it is genius. Every battle and every war is a war of attrition and a war of logistics. And Ukraine has this one covered right here. Nobody against Ukraine can do nothing about the acquiring of the parts for this boat, Sea Baby boat. Beautiful.
Використовується на самому дроні, це розробка українців.
Wonderful, so peaceful. For some reason, I feel so peaceful watching. It's like the seaside, and it's morning in Ottawa for me. I don't know, it's very zen. It shouldn't be, but it is. Very well made video, I gotta say. Oof, it looks awesome. Awesome.
Саме перша ціль була це Іван Хурс.
The very first target was Ivan Hurs, and I remember covering this because I cover all the stories, of course. I remember the Ivan Hurs, and this was also Sea Baby. They have taken down so much. These drones are a menace. Ivan Hurs, newest Russian reconnaissance ship of the Russian Federation, turned into the newest submarine by a Sea Baby. Yeah, wonderful, beautiful. After that, we also had 2 successful missions. We hit the ship Sergei Kotov twice. Damn, it's cinematic. We also sank 2 landing boats with APC on board near Chernomorske. The maneuverability of this drone, it's beautiful. I think this is how wars will be fought in the future. Everything is going to be about technology rather than people. Yeah, of course, but the technology is run by the people, and training those people will take much more time, much more time. It is much more effective to train an operator who will use a drone and in 5 minutes can fly another drone. Yeah. We are not yet the fleet, but confidently moving toward it. Look at this. I mean, it took 6 of these to destroy Ivanovets, and this what I'm seeing like 15 already, and they possibly have many more. It's so cinematic, so Hollywood-like, and very terrifying. If I was part of any kind of institution in the Russian Black Sea Fleet on board one of the ships and seeing this right now, I would scream I would like talk in terrified Russian noises right now. This is scary. Look at this. We will work much more efficiently and massively this year, so there will be much more results. Yes, looking forward. I love these drone footage most of all when they go into ships. Looking forward to receiving it. Beautiful. I picked this video also because it's so damn beautiful. It's cinematic. I love this stuff. So I got a very zen vibe off of it. My friends, we have to talk now about Tucker Carlson. Now, I'm very afraid to touch any United States internal politics topics because I'm not US citizen and I'm not supposed to put my nose into this. It's foreign business for me and it's very dangerous and explosive. But I cannot ignore this. I cannot. As an Estonian living next to Russia, it pains me to see what Tucker Carlson is doing in Moscow. I'll give you the report and I'll leave you to decide what's up. Also, feel free to educate me in the comments on the topic of Tucker Carlson. I don't understand that man. Former American Fox News channel host Tucker Carlson has become a key figure of the Russian media in recent days. And now it gets interesting. Check this out. During the week, Russian state media mentioned Carlson more than 2,000 times, so more than Putin himself. They mentioned Tucker Carlson. This frequency increased 14 times in the last few days. Among Russian media, Russia Today wrote about Carlson the most, more than 130 posts mentioning him in its Telegram channel. So it's like a new superstar in Russia, Tucker Carlson. Russian media, state media and propaganda are like lifting this guy up onto the heavens. So What's up? Tucker is American. Russians, they don't like Americans, like officially they don't right now. And this guy goes to Moscow and suddenly Putin loves this guy. What's going on? The Russian press is documenting his every move, watching where his car drives, how he watched the ballet Spartacus at Bolshoi Theater, and being commented by Dmitry Peskov, being called to shows, both political and entertainment channels, being ready to accept him into the Union of Journalists of the Russian Federation, opinion leaders in the Russian Federation enthusiastically reposting one after another that Tucker Carlson will interview Putin. So it's obviously Putin's order for all of the media to eat this guy up and shove it down the face of Russian people. Tucker Carlson is our new friend in America. This is the message Russian people are getting right now from Putin's controlled media. Tucker Carlson represents USA. He's in Moscow, so whatever he says is the opinion of the US. This is what Russian people believe. So this gives a new light to what Tucker Carlson says. And I think you know very well what he says. Now I'll read you some more, and it gets really juicy here. The surprising fact is that this is happening in Russia, where propaganda treats the population with the thesis that the US has lost its influence in the world. Russia is not interested in the opinion of the US, and the US is hostile to the Russian Federation. Obviously, the main message of the interview will be the thesis, Russia wants peace, Ukraine does not, which has already been voiced by Putin more than once. Addressee of this message is the Americans. So Tucker Carlson has a lot of American eyes watching him, and he's in Moscow. Putin's press is praising him. So Putin wants this message to go to the US, that Putin wants peace. And the US people then say, hey, Putin wants peace. Ukrainians are the warmongers. Why should we support them? Why should we pour our billions? Well, there are two things. First of all, the United States billions are spent in the United States. Up to 90% of them are spent in wages and research and development in the US, paying taxes for the US citizens. The money is not going physically to Ukraine. The product is going to Ukraine. Second of all, Ukraine does not need peace. It needs a victory, because this is unfortunately a luxury of any person who does not know Russia to think that peace is peace with Russia. Peace is never peace with Russia. It's a pause. Russia only wants peace if they have failed in the previous war. Let's take the first Chechen wars in the 90s. They lost the first one, it was peace. They won the second one. It has always been like that. They will gather their forces and attack again. Peace is only a pause for the imperialistic nation of Russia, which then will gather and then attack again. So, no peace, only victory. This is how you talk to the Russians. This is their language. And if you don't speak that language, for example, Western European people who don't understand that language, who says peace is peace, they will just get bada bim, bada boom by the Russians. Remember how the United States now created United States Space Force as a separate branch of the military, and one of the only countries in the world to have an official Space Force? Well, now Ukraine officially created a new branch, and it's not the Space Force, it's the drone forces. It's the first country in the world to have official part of the military, official branch, like the ground force, like the Navy, like the Air Force, now drone forces. That means they are reforming the way we think about warfare, and I think other countries, especially the NATO countries, will follow suit. And we should. Now I'll open up a little bit about the differences in Ukraine and Russian drone production, because they are very, very different. Ukraine drone production, up to 200 startups produce FPV drones. Everybody has gotten to the same solution in a different way, and they have different logistical processes, different prices, 200 separate R&D developments. It's decentralized, and it's mostly funded by you guys. It's actually volunteer funded. I'm a part of that huge Ukrainian drone success because I give you guys the opportunity to fund these drones. In Russia, it's all centralized. It's quite the opposite side of the spectrum, extreme opposite, where everything is controlled by the army, and a few big manufacturers have been chosen out, 3 to 4 big factories and companies who are producing all of the drones in Russia. It's very centralized, very controlled, very rigid. In Ukraine, it's uncontrollable. Everybody is producing drone and coughing them to the front line. And if you take down one company, it doesn't really affect anything at all because it's decentralized. Other companies will still do it. This is why you cannot bombard Ukrainian drone production, because it's all over the country and all over the world. Now, the negative part about the decentralization is that all of the parts come from China. most of them, at least for Ukrainian drones, while in Russian centralized way, most of the parts come from Russia, some of them from China. Now, if anything new comes from the Russian side to the front line, then Ukrainian reaction to it is very fast, because if you have 200 different startups who are all competing to be the newest and the best, it's in a capitalist system way. You compete with the competition and you have to be the best, otherwise you will not be chosen. Meaning if Russia innovates in any kind of way, 200 different companies will start to make a counter weapon to that, meaning you will get a counter weapon very fast. If Russia produces a new jammer or a new drone, 3-4 weeks later, one of these Ukrainian startups have been able to produce a cheap, mass-producible countermeasure to it. But in Russian, very rigid, top-heavy, controlled and centralized style, innovation is much harder. Where Ukrainians innovate like crazy, 200 different solutions come to the front, it's very hard to counter them on the Russian side because they are centralized, they are top-heavy, and they have to choose and order the innovation. It's very hard to order innovation. You just let people do it and it's beautiful, but if you have to order it in a militaristic way, it takes a lot more time and resources. And that's the Russian way. They do innovate, it takes a lot longer for them. And that results directly in Russian losses. Now, I don't want to sound all rosy all the time, so I'll sound not so rosy. Also, Russia was actually able to out-innovate the Ukrainians at one very specific instance. It's just one instance. They surprised the Ukrainians on the front lines with thermal camera kamikaze drones. The cheapest mass-producible kamikaze drones in the world usually don't have thermal cameras. They just go into the tank, bada bim, bada boom. They don't work at night usually. But Russian drones suddenly had cameras that cost exactly, I have it written down, Cadex TR2640 thermal camera, $1,289 in the Wild Berries online shop. So, thermal cameras at night, they will hunt down Ukrainian troops. It was a really bad surprise. Of course, Ukrainians now have the countermeasure and they're doing these thermal drones themselves, but it shows that Russians also are able to innovate, although at much slower pace. Now I'll open up one Ukrainian drone tactic for you. There are many different ones. Since Ukrainian drone groups are not that centralized, they can operate more freely, developing more better tactics according to the situational awareness of that specific unit. I'll open up one tactic for you and I love it. Check this out. One drone flies low with a calling light, a big LED light attached to it. At night or at dawn or wherever, it's a huge projector and the Russian soldiers start firing at it. Of course they do. Then other drones enter the scene much higher, seeing where the muzzle flashes are when the Russian troops are, and they start pinpointing those muzzle flashes one by one. So the LED drone is like a decoy, luring out the Russian small arms fire because they're afraid, they want to shoot it down as fast as possible. And other drones go pew pew pew, no more muzzle flashes, no more fire, destroy all of the Russian personnel. That's one of the tactics. Now, one more interesting fact about the differences in the Ukrainian and Russian approach to this drone branch of their military is the training and picking out of the operators, while the Ukrainians really do try to pick the cream of the crop, because drone operators do the most losses to the Russian army. So the Ukrainians pick the best operators and they have a priority or privy to the best guys in the army. Okay, you are very intelligent and very capable. We take you as an operator. Everybody's okay with it. While in the Russian army, they don't think like that. They usually use as drone operators the persons who are not that good on the front line or in the war zone. If they cannot be meat, if they cannot fight, then they will be used as operators. But that sometimes also translates into not being able to act that quickly, think that quickly, or be with a very fast reaction, or be the most intelligent. So in Russian sense, they don't pick the most intelligent people for the drone operators because they have a different system. So Ukrainian drone operators are many times more experienced and better than the Russian ones, which again translates very directly into the effectiveness of the Russian kamikaze drone versus the Ukrainian kamikaze drone, and the ratio is very different. And now to the final topic of the drones. On this video you can see a Ukrainian land drone retrieving a Russian air drone. It's weird and bizarre if you hear it like that. Yes, this is a Ukrainian land drone retrieving a Russian recon Orlan 10, which was landed by Ukrainian electronic warfare capabilities or units, so it's mostly undamaged, and it's retrieved because it's in an area very dangerous to go with men. retrieved by Ukrainian land drone, and then possibly taken apart and studied. Now, Orlan 10, very good drone. Of course, since I have opened this up again, the mass production of Orlan 10 is filled with corruption money. It's supposed to be cheap. It's what, like 120,000 per drone, but about half of that money goes to an officer who orders those drones. So it's actually costs like 40K, and it's filled with cameras from like Sweden and Norway. The speed cameras, they have been stolen and fed into Russia. So it's filled with stolen parts, but it works and it does the job. My friends, Ukrainian hackers have revealed the numbers behind the deals in Russia and Iran. How much does the Shahed really cost for Russians? How much can they produce? How much they paid altogether? Well, now we know that Russians paid altogether 1.54 billion USD, including software-related moving production, to Russia and other costs. According to this data, Iran is able to produce 90% of the required components itself. This is a very worrying sentence because Iran is under United States and most of the Western world sanctions for the last, 40 years, and they're able to mass produce the Shahed drone. And I'm sure most of it happens on the ground because United States has satellites everywhere and they could bombard whatever they want in that country, but they don't. Iran is very successfully, unfortunately, able to produce these very dangerous drones underground and produce the parts also. So for some reason, these sanctions against Iran have huge loopholes. And now we'll go to specific pricing, and this gets very interesting. Again, I think a lot of that money that goes to Iran, but a lot of that money also goes to the procurement officer of Shahed drones, because in Russia, no money moves without somebody taking a huge portion of it. It's just the system. It's not possible for money to move in Russia without somebody taking like 15%. The Iranian side announced a starting price of 375,000 per unit, 375,000 USD per one Shahed drone. However, during the negotiation, an agreement was reached for 193,000 per piece when ordering 6,000 units, or 290,000 when ordering 2,000 units. The total price of the production contract, including the transfer of technologies, equipment, 6,000 pieces of UAVs and software, is roughly 1.75 billion USD. A lot of money. According to other published documents, at least partially, Russia conducts its final financial transaction and payments with Iran in gold. But my friends, now it gets interesting. This piece of information I'm going to read you right now is mind-blowing. Check this out. 291,000 for each Shahed, $1,000. 5 to 6 times the market price, claims of 80% interception rate. Yes, because Shahed is one of the easiest drones for Ukrainians to shoot down. It can be shot down almost with any weapon except for the small arms. That is also possible, but it's harder. It's a very, very destructible drone up in the air. And that's the price from an ally. Iran must remember the price USSR charged for a kit during the Spanish Civil War. And Iran demanded gold. Even ruble is effectively worthless. Thing is, 1 out of 5 hits a target, 4 out of 5 of them are destroyed, and one drone costs 291,000. That means the price of one Shahed hitting a target for Russia is 1.5 million. Since 4 of them don't hit and you have to pay all of that. So 1.5 million is the price for an effective hit with a Shahed drone. This is crazy if you do the math. I mean, Russia has fired thousands of those drones. Most of them shot down, like 90%, over 90% of Shaheds are intercepted by Ukraine. But this means Iran is really using Russia to get more money, and they don't trust Russian money. Nobody does, and they shouldn't. So Iran is demanding gold. My friends, now I'm gonna do the Patreons. I'm gonna butcher some Patreon names, and I just want to say I'm extremely thankful for you, all of you, and especially the patrons, for being able to do what I do. I'm right now in Ottawa, in Canada. I'm going to meet all of the Baltic States ambassadors. I'm going to meet Canadian senators today. Everybody I meet, I'll try to guide their attention towards supporting Ukraine. And I feel a lot of support towards Ukraine in Canada and in the US also. I just want to say thank you for existing, for watching, and for supporting the channel. Now, put some earplugs in because you're going to lose your hearing after I name these guys. Alessandro, Aidas Janulis, you gotta be Lithuanian, man. Paul Stensland, Pil Kallaghan, Christian Sand. Thank you to these people. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you like my channel, and I do, this entire trip I'm doing right now, it's up on my Patreon. I'll do like daily 2 posts a day. You can see all my janky setup and everything. I don't have a screen even. This is a standing floor lamp right there. And this is you're on a chair, my friends. This is a potato. You can see this potato in my Patreon. Go and check it out. I also do sit reps there and everything I do. I'm so glad to be able to do what I do. It's all thanks to you. So until my next video, which will be tomorrow, Slava Ukraini, and bye bye.